He sat in front of a camera, opened his accounting software, and told over 500,000 people that his family's farm was about to lose $523,000 in a single year. Not rumored, not leaked. He said it himself, walked through every line of the spreadsheet, and uploaded the whole thing. His name is Cole, known across YouTube as Cole the Cornstar, and the decision to show that number to the world is not the thing that built his channel. Understanding why he made it, and what it cost him to keep making decisions like it, is the reason this story matters. The part of Iowa that Cole grew up in is not the kind of place that gets a lot of coverage. Central Iowa, row crop country, the kind of landscape that most Americans only ever see at 80 miles per hour through a car window. His family's farm has been worked by the same bloodline for 5 generations. His great-grandfather bought the farmland and the house that sat on it back in 1939, the whole property for $7,000. By the time Cole was growing up on that same land, the operation had expanded to roughly 1,700 acres of corn and soybeans, worked by his father, who viewers came to know as Daddy Cornstar, and his brother Cooper. Cole went to college. That's not a given in farming families, where the land needs hands, and every season is a financial decision. He enrolled at the University of Northern Iowa, studied finance, and graduated with an accounting degree. That matters more than it sounds, because that accounting background is the thread that runs through every major decision and every major controversy in his YouTube career. The channel idea came out of a specific frustration. He had come back from college and noticed that people who lived 20 minutes from a working farm had almost no idea what farming actually involved. The financing, the equipment cycles, the weather exposure, the margin structure, even locals. He talked it over with friends one night, landed on the name Cole the Cornstar around 11:30 p.m., and got up the next morning and started filming. He launched the channel in October 2018. His goal for year 1 was to reach 1,000 subscribers. He had 300 after several months of posting. That's the number that mattered, not because it was small, but because of what happened next. And if you think that was a slow start, stay with me, because this next part is why the whole story matters. If you ask 300 subscribers is where most channels stay. Cole did not stay there. One video changed that trajectory entirely, and it wasn't a farming video in the traditional sense. It was a finance video. The title was Convincing the Bank to Lend Me $1,000, and it did almost 500,000 views. The premise was simple and completely unusual for a farming channel at the time. Cole sat down and walked his audience through the actual process of securing $1 million operating loan to fund a season of farming. The paperwork, the conversation with the lender, the numbers behind why a farming operation needs that kind of capital just to plant a crop. No theatrics, no manufactured drama. He just opened up the real mechanics of his financial life and let people watch. The result was a 300 to 10,000 subscriber jump in 2 weeks. By March 2020, just a year and a half after launching, the channel was over 200,000 subscribers. That kind of growth doesn't happen by accident, and it doesn't happen because the content is entertaining. Exactly. It happens because the content fills a gap. People who had never been near a farm were watching a young guy in Iowa explain, in plain language, how a farm actually runs as a business, and people who had grown up farming were watching because someone was finally saying out loud what they lived every day. Cole has described himself as having a specific gift, taking complicated things and making them interesting. The bank loan video was the first proof of that at scale. But here's the part that changes everything about what you just heard. The bank loan video built the channel. What happened on August 10, 2020, proved it was something different. A derecho slammed through Iowa that day, straight-line winds hitting up to 100 miles per hour, driving across a 750-mile path through the Midwest. The storm destroyed grain bins, still loaded with tens of millions of bushels of the previous year's harvest. It flattened corn that had been tracking toward record yields. Iowa's annual corn crop at the time was valued at close to $10 billion. The derecho hit it like a wrecking ball. Cole's farm took a direct hit. Generators down, semis flipped, crops flattened, grain bins destroyed. He filmed it, all of it. And then he posted the footage. Here's why that mattered beyond just one farm's damage. The national media wasn't covering the derecho. Local Iowa news was, but the rest of the country had essentially no coverage of a storm that caused billions of dollars in agricultural damage across the Midwest. When people searched for information about what had happened to Iowa's farming communities, Cole's video was what came up. His derecho content approached 1 million views, not because of his subscriber base, but because he was the only camera on the ground producing anything the rest of the country could find. Cole himself has spoken about that moment directly. He noted that there wasn't much reporting beyond local news, so when people searched for information about the Iowa storm, his video surfaced. What started as documentation of his family's loss became the primary lens through which a large portion of the country understood what the derecho actually did to the farms it hit. Inotiman on a farmer had briefly become the agricultural record of a regional disaster. Most people who know this story stop here, but the real story starts right now. Every farming channel on YouTube at the time operated in roughly the same way. Show the good seasons, the big equipment, the sweeping harvests, show the pride. Cole understood that model. He also made a different choice. He decided to show the accounting, not the highlights, the actual books, the operating costs, the projected losses, the grain marketing strategies, the margin compression when commodity prices moved against the farm. For a creator with a finance degree, this was natural territory. For a YouTube audience that had never seen a farming channel explain its own P&L statement, it was something completely new. That choice, to make the financial reality of a family farm transparent, built a loyal audience that trusted him in a specific way. They weren't just watching because corn is interesting. They were watching because Cole treated them like adults who could handle the real math of how food gets grown. His grandfather, who passed away in 2018, just as Cole was launching the channel, had worked that land his whole life. Cole has talked about wanting to honor that legacy and do it proud. Part of honoring it, in Cole's framework, was refusing to make it look easier than it was. The 1917 farmhouse that his great-grandfather bought for $7,000 in 1939 became another extension of that approach. Cole moved into that house in 2019, a 5-bedroom property that had sat largely untouched, and began documenting its restoration. He put hundreds of hours into cleaning it, painting it, rebuilding it, and filming every stage of a project that had no guaranteed ending, not a renovation show, not a flipped property, a 5th-generation family home being brought back by hand. And that decision, to show the real work, the real cost, the real uncertainty, set the conditions for everything that was about to go wrong. And that's when the decision was made, the one nobody around him saw coming. At some point in the growth of any farming operation, grain storage becomes a strategic decision. Storing your own grain means you can sell on your terms, rather than the elevator's terms. For a farm the size of Cole's, 1,700 acres of corn and soybeans, that kind of storage capability could be the difference between a profitable year and a loss year, depending on when the market moved. Cole decided to build a grain bin site. He invested approximately $1 million into the infrastructure. New bins, new handling equipment, a complete grain storage and drying setup meant to give Cornstar Farms control over its own commodity timing. It started going wrong almost immediately. Parts of the structure failed. Bins showed signs of collapse. Equipment that cost $1 million to install wasn't functioning properly. Cole filmed it, because Cole films everything, and what his audience watched was a months-long unraveling of a major capital investment. He posted updates on the problems, updates on conversations with the contractor, and eventually, an update announcing that he had filed a lawsuit against the bin site contractor. Then the bin site was torn down entirely, $1 million in, and the structure had to come back out of the ground. Torn down, hauled off, and rebuilt. The lawsuit remained ongoing while the rebuild proceeded. Cole's lawyer reportedly told him there was a significant amount he couldn't discuss publicly, and he said that on camera too. The bin site crisis collided with something else, the backlash. At some point during the cost overruns on the bin project, Cole made a request that his audience push back on, asking viewers to contribute financially to help cover excess spending. The farming community online did not respond quietly. Farming forums, Reddit threads, comment sections, all became places where people debated whether a YouTube creator with a finance degree should be asking his audience for money to cover what critics called financial mismanagement. The argument against him pointed to exactly what had built his audience in the first place, his accounting background. If he understood numbers, the critics asked, how did the numbers get this far out of control? Here's what the comments kept asking. And here's the answer they never got, until now. The bin site controversy was one layer. The farm finances were a different layer entirely. And in April 2024, Cole put both in front of his audience at once. The video was titled around the projection that his family's farm was expected to lose $523,000 that year. He was 27 or 28 years old, farming 1,700 acres with his father and brother, running a grain marketing strategy, managing a construction lawsuit, restoring a century-old farmhouse, posting to YouTube multiple times a week, and staring at a spreadsheet that said his operation would lose more than $500,000 before the year was out. He posted the video anyway. He walked through the numbers. He explained the pressure that corn and soybean prices had put on margins, the way input costs had stayed elevated while commodity prices softened, the structure of the loss. He used his finance degree the same way he always had, to translate a complicated financial picture into language that a non-farmer could follow. The video did over 340,000 views. By October of that same year, the harvest numbers had come in, and the projected loss had been revised. The farm was now expected to lose approximately $376,000, still a significant number for a family operation, but meaningfully better than the April projection. Cole posted that update too. What's easy to miss in the sequence of events is what Cole was actually doing with these videos. Most businesses, most families, keep their financial struggles private. The cultural script for a successful YouTube creator is to project growth, project momentum, project that everything is working. Cole's entire brand had been built on refusing to follow that script. Losing $500,000 on a year's farming was devastating. Putting it on camera was a choice, and that choice brought in hundreds of thousands of views from people who had never planted a single seed, because the honesty of it was something they'd never seen from a creator of that size. What happened next is the reason this story spread across the internet. Step back from the individual moments, the bank loan video, the derecho footage, the bin site lawsuit, the $523,000 loss reveal, and a pattern becomes visible. Every single one of those moments existed because Cole made the same fundamental decision over and over again, to show what was actually happening, even when what was actually happening was bad. That's not a content strategy in the traditional sense. Content strategies are about packaging reality to look better than it is. What Cole built was something closer to a financial and operational diary of a fifth-generation family farm, including the parts that a PR consultant would have buried. He never claimed the farm was failing. He also never claimed it was thriving when it wasn't. He just put the numbers on screen and let his audience sit with them. The result is a channel that sits at approximately 634,000 subscribers, with over 254 million total views. It's a channel that gets 1.8 million views in a single month from a farming audience that isn't chasing entertainment, it's chasing truth. Cole's audience skews toward people who either work in agriculture or grew up near it, but it also includes a significant population who have never been on a working farm and follow Cole precisely because he's the most honest window into that world they've found. His grandfather used to say, and Cole has repeated it, that he'd be tickled by all of this, that he'd be amazed at all these people watching from all over the world. The farm his great-grandfather bought for $7,000 in 1939 now generates content that reaches millions of people who will never set foot in Iowa. One phone call, one conversation. That's all it took to change the direction of everything. Except in Cole's case, that call was the one he made to himself, around 11:30 on a quiet night in 2018, when he decided the world needed to see what farming actually looked like. The bin site that cost $1 million and then had to be torn down is being rebuilt. The 1917 farmhouse that Cole moved into in 2019 is still under restoration, a project of such scope that 8 months in late 2024, he described it as a mansion in progress, with an enormous amount of it still left to build. As of 2026, Cole is still farming alongside his father and brother in central Iowa. He appeared on the Shark Farmer program on RFD News, where he talked about the farm approaching century farm status, meaning within a decade or so, the Cornstar operation will cross 100 years of continuous family ownership. He described himself, in that appearance, the same way he has always described himself, a farmer who makes videos, not a YouTuber who happens to own a farm. The distinction matters to him. It's not branding. It's the thing that explains every decision he has made on camera. A YouTuber protects their image. A farmer shows you the broken equipment, the failed structure, the spreadsheet with the red number at the bottom, because that's what farming is. You can't curate a drought. You can't edit out a contractor who doesn't deliver. You can't hide the derecho. You just pick up the camera and document it, and let your audience decide whether the honesty is worth following. Cole has always believed it is. The subscriber count says his audience agrees. The farm his great-grandfather bought for $7,000 is still there, still being worked, still being documented, still losing money some years and fighting back in others, exactly the way farms always have. The decision that changed everything for Cole the Cornstar wasn't going viral. It was deciding, before he had a single sponsor or 1,000 subscribers, that the only version of this channel worth building was an honest one, and then holding that decision through a $1 million construction failure, a $500,000 projected loss year, and a lawsuit that his own lawyer told him he couldn't fully discuss on camera. He's still farming, still filming. The bin site rebuild is underway. The 1917 farmhouse restoration continues, and a farm approaching a century of family ownership keeps working the same central Iowa ground his great-grandfather paid $7,000 for in 1939. Whatever comes next for Cornstar Farms will almost certainly be filmed, budgeted, and posted, including the parts that don't go right. Do you think Cole made the right call by putting his family farm's financial losses on camera for hundreds of thousands of people to watch? Or does that level of transparency cross a line that should stay private? Drop your answer below.